All of you would typically in your hostel rooms would see some of these sitcoms, right? I have one clipping for you. Just bear with me.
Fuck what they want, okay? Consultants like this need a really pretty girl so that she'll want you. We need them to think they're almost perfect so we can book that after work. After work. After work really is the goal of all consultants. Get them on the tip, thinking that their business is going to fail without it. They hire you week in and week out. It's millions and millions in billable hours. That's what we want, baby.
Well, why don't you just tell us what you're thinking? Don't.
Okay. Venture capital as is a work of art. It's a Giotto, a Rembrandt. So how do you make improvements on a masterpiece? So the germane question is, where do you feel you're headed as a company, organically? Because look, the pod remains convinced there's a burning platform and we just don't have the bandwidth to go into a black factory and blow up the paradigms with a white paper. We don't have it.
You think I haven't hired and fired 1,000 management consultants? I know all your bullshit tricks. You get me a dog that hunts. Or I'll put a bullet in his head.
I have no doubt. Remember, this is a halo jump. Halo. High altitude, low open. Management consultants love that special forces jargon. Roger that. Deck. Basically a PowerPoint presentation for the client. That's what we did. We made PowerPoint decks and we stuffed them with numbers to sell our way of fixing the company. Just enough to sell them some more. Do me a favor, Doctor? Optics. How things look to the client. We're basically telling companies to change the way they've been doing business forever. Who the fuck are we? Just some people they met a few days ago. All they have to go on is what they can see.
Jokes, right? Let's talk about consulting. So, what is consulting? Good friend here said that we help businesses grow by finding out strategies in terms of what go-to-market route they should be taking, what product should they be investing, what geography should they be targeting, what customer segment they should be looking at, right? Yeah, I mean that is consulting, but consulting is a lot of things, okay? And when I say consulting is a lot of things, consulting per se is a very generic word, right? Which means what? Giving expert advice to people, right? The key word here is giving expert advice. So if you're talking to a client, somebody who's paying you money for whatever, I mean advice, maybe either to gain compliances from a regulatory perspective, or let's say they want to have a growth strategy in place, or let's say they want to have sound systems in place which they want set up, right? They are looking for people who are experts, right? Even if they are not experts, they at least look like experts and behave like experts. That is what the money is getting paid for, right? Keyword is expert advice. Okay, so I have some numbers for you, right? I mean, like I said, consulting is a very, very generic term. So, what all happens in consulting, right? Which all sectors consume consulting services? What all consulting services get sold in the market, right? These numbers are a bit dated, around a year and a half old, but nonetheless, they are a good starting place to prove a point, saying that I mean these same sectors, these same service lines still tend to be on top of the charts in terms of their consumption of consulting services, right? So, for example, if you look here, financial services, right, that forms the bulk of consulting purchase from a sector perspective, right? So, NBFCs, banks, other financial institutions, they are looking for consultants, right? I mean, this is what this data says. What kind of consulting will come to later. Then comes manufacturing, right? The whole history of consulting started with consulting around manufacturing, right? I mean, how can you improve operations on a shop floor, for example? How can you improve the utilization of a particular plant? How can you, make the maximum utilization of the available capacity? Things like that, which are, very large questions, right? Then comes energy and resources. Energy, I mean, from a government perspective, it is becoming big business for consultants, right? I mean, government as a sector, there are practices which are dedicated to government, which are dedicated to infrastructure as a sector, which also has energy as part of it. Services, which is nothing but other services firms. For example, let's say tourism, right? There's a Cox and King, there's a SOTC, there's so many other firms which provide a service. I mean, for example, a MakeMyTrip.com or a Yatra.com, right? These are all services firms which also consume consulting. Technology, media, and telecoms, right? Media houses, right? Telecom players. Telecom is, I mean, I'm sure you must be doing some kite program from KPMG. I mean, if not all, maybe some of the people would have opted for it. So telecom, again, I mean, is a growth sector, right? Not only in India, but some of the other associated, neighboring countries, neighboring continents. Africa is a big market for telecom these days. I mean, it's all, I mean, the consumption story in Africa is taking up these days, and players like Airtel, players like MTN, telecom are doing big business, and they are consuming, I mean, they're big consumers of consulting services. Publicly funded organizations. I mean, for example, your PSUs, right? PSUs tend to be, again, because they are publicly funded, they would constitute typically the government part of the focus vertical from a consulting perspective. But they are, big business. I mean, there's a whole set procedure in which consultants approach these PSUs, and it's a different business altogether, because they are huge from a size perspective. So these are multi-year projects, which bring typically a larger ticket size and of longer durations. Pharma and biotech, these are again very specialized niche areas which consume very niche consulting services. So people who are doing generic consulting around systems, they would be catering to the support part of these companies which are into this sector. But there are again niche consultants who would do very specific work in terms of, let's say, some of these companies are doing R&D and coming out with a new molecule, right? So how can some of the consulting firms sell bioinformatics models to these companies so that they can maybe do their analytics in a better way, right? From a services perspective, what services get sold in the market? See, I'll tell you why this is important for you. When you're looking at consulting as a career option, you need to understand what kind of expertise you need. What is the, I'm not sure what is typically the mix from an experience perspective of your batch. But for someone who's looking to make a career in consulting, there are two things, right? One is you need to have a mature head on your shoulders, because you would be typically working alongside people who are sufficiently senior in the scheme of things in a particular company from the client base, right? So you need to be able to manage those client expectations. The other thing is you need to come out as experts in a particular field. So for example, if somebody has telecom experience and is looking to, let's say, sit for some company from a technology or let's say from a telecom angle, you need to have your basics in place, right? For you to come out as an expert on something, right? So these are some of these services. Technology, for example, technology is big business. I mean, companies such as Infosys, TCS, IBM, Wipro, Accenture, they are all into this technology consulting space. I mean, even players like, you know, product companies such as a Cisco, they are into this technology consulting space, wherein what they do is that they would create a business case for technology, right? By saying that, you know, if a particular process that happens in a company is not automated, how can it best be automated, right? And automation basically means less number of human resources, which means, you know, in consulting jargon, FTE savings, full-time equivalent employees or full-time employee savings, right? Which is again big business, largely coming in from North America and Western Europe. Strategy, okay? See, I mean, when we say strategy, there are various firms which vie for this overall strategy piece. Strategy is nothing but looking into the future, right? And seeing where a particular company should go, right? There are various dimensions in which a particular company can head, which customers, which markets, which products, right? So any consulting activity which happens on a, let's say, on a 3 to 5 year, you know, I mean, horizon, keeping that 3 to 5 year horizon would typically constitute part of this strategy consulting space. Financial management and risk. Okay, this is again big business. Risk, especially for NBFCs, for banks, it is one of the most important things, right? Banks or, you know, other financial institutions are very strong from a risk management perspective, especially from a finance risk management perspective. There are niche consulting firms which cater to you know, the financial risk management needs. Now this also says financial management, right? Financial management is not investment, but financial management is typically looking at a finance function of a company, right? Let's say, for example, there's a Tata Sons, right? A Tata Sons would typically have its own finance function, which would be looking, you know, catering to the daily needs of business. It would typically be a support function. Some of the you know, finance function would you know, be part of the individual businesses. Some would be, you know, sitting at a corporate level and catering to business. So consulting solutions which are provided to such, you know, corporate finance departments would typically constitute financial management. Marketing and selling, right? This is again different from strategy. Strategy would be what do you have to sell, let's say 3 years, 5 years into the future, or let's say 10, even 10 years into the future. Marketing and selling would be something like how can you have better incentive management model for your workforce, for example, right? What marketing scheme should you run such that you are able to derive maximum benefits from a particular geography, right? HR and change management, again big area for somebody who is into HR and is looking to join a consult. This is a big space, right? Companies hire HR consultants for a lot of things, right? For example, designing their HR systems, designing the performance management system, for example, how should appraisals happen, right? What should the recruitment strategy be? In fact, a lot of so-called recruitment consulting firms are there which help you know, corporates staff people, right? Program management, okay, which is nothing but saying that, you know, if there's a large initiative that I want to have inside my company, do I have the expertise to manage that particular initiative? So these initiatives are typically run as programs, which are long ranging from a time perspective. They would typically be 1 year, 2 years, let's say more than 2 years even. So companies hire consultants to manage, you know, various stakeholders, manage the time. You know, I mean, there may be many subcontractors, there are internal stakeholders, there are investors. So typically somebody who is doing program management would be managing all of these various stakeholders. Any questions? I mean, at any point in time, if you have any questions on whatever I am saying, please do raise your hands and you know, ask. Any questions till now? No? You understand what consulting is then? Because I have covered a significant part of of the consulting market from a solutions, from a sector perspective. Because let's say if you end up choosing a career in consulting, it is maybe in one of these verticals or one of these sectors you would be catering to, or one of these services you would be working on. This is again, a very consolidated view of services. There are many services which would typically form part of each of these buckets, right? Okay, the landscape, right? Who are the players? So consulting, like I said, expert advice on various things. So people who typically provide expert advice on strategy would be strategy consultants. Somebody who provides expert advice on operations, on how to improve operations, would be operations consultants. Somebody who provides it for risk management would be a risk consultant. Somebody who does it for HR would be an HR consultant. So I mean, likewise, right? So if you look at some of these companies, I'm sure all of you would at least know, or would have at least heard about some of these names, right? The erstwhile so-called technology players, which were not looked as consultants, are moving into the consulting space. You see Accenture, IBM. Accenture used to be consulting. I mean, it acquired a bigger chunk of consulting from the erstwhile Anderson, right? IBM never used to be in consulting. In the mid 90s, mid to late 90s, they decided that they want to do away with their products business and they want to get into consulting. So consulting is now big business for IBM as well. Tata Consultancy Services, I mean, even though the name is consulting, we used to identify it as more of an IT player, but it is again a big player in the consulting market now. So all the firms, I mean, I've arranged this in a particular order, right? The McKinsey, the BCG, the Bain, Arthur D. Little, A.T. Kearney, SDG, Oliver Wyman, Roland Berger, all of these are so-called strategy consulting firms, right? Which would typically be doing, like I said, 3 to 5 year, 10-year horizon. They would be formulating strategies. They would be laying out a roadmap in terms of what a particular company needs to do year on year. Where should they set up a plant? What product should they manufacture if they have to grow, let's say 10 times in 10 years, right? So they would have solutions like these. And then there's the big four, right? KPMG, EY, PwC, Deloitte. Big four is known from an audit perspective. They are the biggest 4 auditors in the world. But these big four are now moving into the non-audit space, which is advisory or consulting. PwC acquired Booz Consulting of late, which used to operate in, let's say, strategic and higher operational consulting space. Deloitte also bought Monitor Group, which was one of the consulting companies started by Mr. Porter, right? Porter's 5 Forces. EY, KPMG, all of these are firms which used to be operating in the operations consulting space are now moving into strategy, right? The other story is happening on the other side, wherein these strategy consulting firms, when they get into India, and India, we ask, kitne mein kitna chalega, right? I mean, we remember that Maruti hai, kitna deti hai, right? So people are very, very considerate about what is the value that a particular consultant has to offer. So if you are simply telling a company that this is what you need to do on a 5-year basis, and then you go and maybe you join some other consulting, so there's no responsibility as such, right? So people in India now, some of these consultants have realized that people in India are looking for that hand-holding, right? Yes, you've given me a strategy. How do I implement this strategy? What do I do? You've told me that change this system, but how to change this system? What to do with this system, right? So even the so-called strategy consulting firms are getting into that space of operations consulting, and they are establishing big teams which operate in the operations consulting space. Then you got the IT consulting firms, which, like I had shown earlier, technology is one of the biggest piece from a revenue perspective, right, for the Indian consulting market. But yes, this revenue largely comes from, technology consulting revenue largely comes from, North America and Western Europe. Even though, Australia has also now become a big consumer. So yeah, I mean, Accenture is again, something, a company that competes with the big four foreign operations by IBM, TCS, Infosys. All of these guys do, operations consulting, and they sell technology on the back of that, right? So they would again enter into multi-year deals. They would do the consulting part first, and then they would sell technology on the back of that. So they are again, large system integrators, right? And then you got Capgemini, Atos, Mercer and Hay Group are largely, one of the well-known human resource consultants. Capgemini is big in outsourcing. Accenture is big in outsourcing, right? India is an outsourcing hub for the world. Even though, Philippines and, some of the other companies are giving good competition, but nonetheless, we know, how big India is from a talent perspective. So these companies, these firms would typically go to a company and tell them how to outsource, and would then again, do outsourcing for them. So there's consulting as well as managed services work which is sold by these companies, right? At any point in time, any questions, do let me know, because I mean, I'm giving you gyan on what some of these consulting firms do. I'm sure if you go to their sites, you would be able to know. But this is just a snapshot of what they do, right? Okay, for fresh MBAs, right? What are some of the opportunities, right? Consulting, I'm not sure if consulting really excites you, right? It's a difficult job, and why I say it is a difficult job. If I compare growth of an individual in a particular company, right? If you're working in industry, I mean, we typically have this term industry and consulting. So if you're working in industry, right, you would typically, for you to reach a top, or let's say a mid-level management position, would take some time. This can be 5 to 10 years, right? Top management would take typically anything between 10 to 15 to 20 years, right? Then again, you have to be good at what you're doing, right? For a consultant, this time is squeezed. You're talking to the CX, right? I mean the CXO group. You deal with the middle management. You deal with the operations guys right at the bottom of the food chain. So you deal with the entire organization when you are on a consulting engagement. You understand what are some of the operational issues. You understand what are some of the issues at the middle management level. You understand how to communicate some of these issues to the top management, so that they are able to appreciate it, right? And then hence come to a conclusion, and then the whole recommendation thing that happens. So that basically means that your maturity curve is very, very steep. Your learning curve is very, very steep, because if you make one mistake, right, in front of client, like I had showed in the video, if you get a number wrong, all the various numbers will be questioned, right? So you have to have that utmost integrity, utmost sincerity with which you work. So essentially, what does that mean for you? Your growth path is all the more steep, right? Whatever you are going to achieve in, let's say, 20 years in a normal industry role, you are able to achieve in 10 if you are in consulting. You are in consulting, and what I'm talking about is that you can't use, spend some time in consulting and then move over to industry, right? So I'm not sure if some of you are looking seriously at consulting as a profession, but if you are, right, what is in it for MBAs like you, right? Some of you might have experience, some of you might not have experience, some of you might be directly coming in from your graduation into an MBA course. But essentially, for a consultant to hire you, you should appear very, very smart, right? And when I say smart, not only from a dressing sense, but smart from your thinking. You should be thinking all the time. Now this is again a very, very subjective thing to say. What should I think about, right? Whatever subjects you are reading right now, right? Think about those subjects. Simply reading a particular theory, is that going to help someone? Because understand, that same book, let's say you're reading Kotler, every other B-school student would read Kotler. So what is it that you are giving extra, right? If somebody asks that, what are the 4 P's, everybody can say what are the 4 P's of marketing, or whatever C's, or whatever, right? Whatever is in the book. But how have you used the book to apply in a particular scenario, right? So typically what happens, I'll come to that later in terms of what happens typically in your normal placements, how the placement process goes. But typically you would be seen as a smart guy who's attacking a problem which is put to you as a case, right? So a case is nothing but a real life situation which a consultant would have encountered in his professional life, and he's posing that, he or she is posing that as a challenge to you, saying how do you react to that situation, what are some of the things, how do you apply whatever you learned. So application is very, very crucial and critical, right? At any point in time, if you have any questions, please ask. I'll talk about how typically you should prepare, right? Okay, I know that maybe in the next 2 months your placement season will be starting, right? But then again, some of the these are some of the certifications that are there, in the market, right? From a CV building perspective, these are some of the things that you can do. If you are not already enrolled in a CFA program, or CFA typically takes you 3 to 4 years to get the charter. FRM used to take 1 attempt, now it is again 2 papers that are there. CIMA is very, very specific. It is a certification for management accountants, right? So for somebody who is coming from a non-engineering background, and if he does CIMA is a very, very rigorous course, okay, and there are very less CIMA certified people out there in the market. There's a dearth of CIMA certified people in the market, right? Six Sigma, I'm sure some of you would have taken the Six Sigma course. From an operations consulting perspective, Six Sigma again, gives you a green belt, black belt, master black belt. You would have done, you have to actually do some of the projects to qualify as a Six Sigma expert, right? PMI is for project management, right? CSCP is again from a supply chain perspective. Prince 2 is very, very specific to program management for the UK government. The UK government uses it. Some of the other governments also use Prince 2 as a guiding methodology for doing program management for large projects, government projects. ITIL is from a technology side. How do you enable that? CPIM again from a operations perspective, right? So think about what you have to do, because
Is this relevant for finance side only, or also for the strategic consultants? Certification.
Right. So for strategy you don't get a certification. Okay. Simply hear me out. So strategy, whatever you're reading as part of your MBA curriculum would help you have that strategy mindset, right? If you would have seen this, the top layer is largely finance in nature, right? So for somebody who wants to let's say grow as an investment professional, CFA is one of the certifications for you. If you want to make space in the financial risk management space, FRM is the certification. There are other certifications as well apart from FRM, which cater to financial risk management needs, right? CIMA again, like I was saying, finance. All the rest are operations. Okay. Now typically what happens, like I was saying, operations consulting is a big space in India, right? even strategy consultants are moving into that space of operations consulting, right? Having said that, if you are good in operations, there's all the more case for you. Don't think about strategy right now, right? Think about operations as a field for you, right? So that way, having said that, somebody with a finance background and somebody having that mix of both finance and operations is a very good candidate with some of the certifications like this for a corporate or for a consulting firm.
So for marketing and
marketing, I'm not sure if there are any certifications. See, marketing, this is again my view, is more of an art than a science. Okay, so you learn marketing by, your normal MBA curriculum would probably teach you better marketing than anything else, or maybe your actual experience in a marketing firm. So like this is largely from operations and finance perspective.
Like I have taken right now, we have some guys from college. We have done Six Sigma program. So it will further help in operations.
Six Sigma can help you in various things, right? For example, what I do for a living is I apply Six Sigma principles to finance processes, right? And we call it lean finance, right? How can I make a finance function process leaner? How can I reduce waste, right? So Six Sigma is applicable to a lot of things. Okay, it's just a methodology. It's just an approach to attacking a problem, right? So Six Sigma is very generic from its applicability perspective, but yeah, and all the more relevant for somebody who is in operations and looking to enter that field. Yeah. So finance. Again, there are multiple other certifications. If you go online, you will find a bunch of them. But see, these are some of the popular ones. Okay. Okay. Career progression. How do you typically rise the corporate ladder in a consulting firm? Okay. For somebody who's a fresher, right? Somebody like you. So somebody who's a fresher would typically start at the associate consultant level, right? I'm talking from KPMG perspective, but there will be different levels which would be analogous to this, right? And then you rise. There's typically a 3-year cycle. In some of the firms, what happens is that, for example, in a McKinsey, if you don't get promoted within 2 to 3 years, you get fired. You have to find a job outside of work because you will not get promoted next year as well, right? For some of the consulting firms, it's more like a 3-year cycle. If somebody is really good in bringing in the right expertise, the right selling skills, then you can rise even faster. There's a fast track. This is typically the level, right? So till a senior consultant, you are largely in a executive role where you are executing yourself. When you become a manager, you have to oversee, this is basically a supervisory kind of a role, right? Where you have to manage different projects and manage a team within you. Associate director is also, something similar to a manager, but one level higher, you have more selling responsibilities. And then director and partner are all about selling, right? They are also responsible from quality perspective. They have to look after the quality of a particular project, but their targets are more like, then again, partners you would have heard that these are people who make the big bucks in consulting. Okay, last but not least, placements, right? What should you do? How should you prepare for placements? Placements is one of the difficult things, right? First of all, there has to be a consulting firm which visits your campus, right? How do you prepare? So, like I was saying, prepare for case-based interviews. There's a guy by the name of Victor Cheng. Okay, you can note down his name, Victor Cheng. He used to be an ex-McKinsey consultant. Now he's created his own. He's written his own book on case interviews, and pretty decent book. Tells you all about how to handle cases. Then again, be very thorough with what you've read. Like I was saying, application is what matters. People will give you case studies and will see how you approach a particular case, right? Bring in all the knowledge, all the requisite models that you would have heard about, or let's say read, right? How can you apply a particular model in a particular scenario? So think about application, right? If you are looking to, let's say, apply off campus, not from campus, right? Again, the process is largely similar, right? Case-based interviews or interviews which are very, very based on your CV, for example, a particular project you would have done. But typically, any interview that you face in a consulting scenario would take you through a case situation, take you through a scenario, and we'll see what your response is to that. Yeah.
So actually, precisely, I have two questions. These are confusions. One is when on one hand you talk about specific expertise, and on the other hand, if I talk about strategy consulting, then if you are there to generate a business plan for a business, then you have to keep in mind the financial aspects also and the marketing aspects also.
Right.
So when you are talking about specific expertise, what does that mean? Because ultimately you have to know about all these things also, the financial thing and all this. So that's the first question. And the second is, what is the role of a brand? Like there is a certain difference between Jaipuria and IIM. So when you hire people, of course there is a different image for IIMs and there is a different image of Jaipuria. So being here also, we get to learn the same things, the same strategies and tools. So to get to the same level of that brand, what can we do to get hired into the MNCs?
Good question. Right. I do understand that branding helps, right? I mean, at the end of the day, a consulting firm is not consuming your services. Your services are being consumed by a third party who is a client of the firm, right? And the client would always want the best profiles. And how do you typically judge a person if you haven't seen his work? The background, right? So if let's say there's a Jaipuria guy and there's a IIM guy, the client would more be interested into that, in that IIM guy because he carries a particular brand which represents something, right? So your question is definitely valid. So if you ask me for a fresher, yes, brand matters a lot, right? But over the years, after 5 years, right? Whatever you've done as part of your job profile, there are people from various institutes. I know for a fact that there are architects, there are doctors, doctors with a proper doctoring, MBBS degree and no other management qualification, who are working with KPMG. I can only quote KPMG for you, right? People from very, very niche colleges, for example, somebody who's done operations consulting from a Symbiosis. He's doing very well, right? Somebody who's from an IMI, right? They are partners who are from IMIs. So, a brand is only the first level of filter. So if you are able to get into a consulting role, if not now, let's say try again, build some expertise. If you have a future scenario in mind, let's say 2 years you want to end up in a consulting role, have a very, very focused job that you select from campus. That this is what I want to do. I want to enter into the financial services space. So maybe I'll work with a bank for some time and then I'll see if I can get into a consulting role, right? Because then you will have that sectoral expertise. So you will be able to approach that particular role in a better way. Okay. What was your other question?
The first question was about the specific expertise.
So expertise you wouldn't have from day one. You have to build. But expertise, like I said, what we are looking for is what you've done in the past and how best you are able to apply that. So application is what matters rather than expertise to begin with. But yeah, after 4 or 5 years, it's all expertise that one has to go.
Okay, research and consulting, no or no?
Research, I think I will be able to tell you better. Consulting, if you have any questions specific, I'm here, right? Right?
Thank you, Pallav. Now we will request Sona to please take over.
Thanks, Pallav. I think it was very informative and a thought-provoking session. Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. You all had lunch? Yeah? You all had? That's why you're sleepy, yeah? After lunch. Okay. I think I myself had a very good idea now today after attending Pallav's session as to what consulting is and what it requires. And I think certainly you would also benefit from it. Okay. Now coming to the KPO part, how many of you are interested in joining the KPO first? Okay, so let me just ask you guys. So you will be my focus areas, yeah? So what do you know about KPOs? What do they do?
Basically, it is about knowledge processing. So, like financial analysis.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else?
What I know about the finance research and analytics, it is about to research what's there and to provide help to your clients.
Okay. Anyone else? I think most of you are actually correct. Actually, the outsourcing industry, it's not just started with the KPO. I think it started with first the IT consulting initially in the 80s. Then it moved to BPO. You know, and both these industries, they were focusing on cost savings. Okay? But then they realized that cost saving is not just the key. And then they moved into KPO, where the focus area became knowledge arbitrage. Yeah? You understand what is arbitrage? What is that? Anyone?
Buying from one market and selling.
Okay, so benefiting. Yeah? It's basically the aim is benefiting. So it is now knowledge arbitrage. So we benefit from each other's knowledge. Okay? And that is why it is called KPO. Now, frankly speaking, the KPO can be divided into, let's say, 4 verticals broadly. Okay? The first one, investment banking. The second, equity research. The third, credit research. Fourth, private equity. Okay? And now we are going beyond this and going into analytics. Okay? Which could be marketing analytics, could be IT analytics, could be financial analytics. So there is scope for every field that you are working in. Okay? Do you all understand what is analytics? What is analytics? Anyone? Yeah.
Basically a secondary research.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, I would just see, it's easy to share knowledge, but it is more better if you research about it and get to know more information on it, okay? Because it's a very, very upcoming field, particularly in the KPO sector. And let me just give you a bit of numbers to get you excited to join the little industry that we're working in. It's expected to touch $30 billion this year. Okay, growing at a CAGR of 30%, okay, and the requirement for professionals like you is like 0.8 million this year. India, and India contributes 70% to the global KPO industry. So you can imagine, you know, how vast this industry is. So you know that there are opportunities, and you know what your strengths are. Yeah, so you know how to tap them. Okay, now. Broadly speaking, you all understand what would be investment banking? Anyone? Yeah.
It's basically issues of new securities.
Okay, that is just one of the functions of investment banking. Anyone else who is aware about the other functions?
It's what we call that the underwriting part of it.
Okay, again another one. The major chunk is primarily mergers and acquisitions for investment banking. So when we talk about the KPO industry, the entire research focuses on which company you're going to acquire, in which sector and at what price. You know, today you go and buy a pen for yourself or a book. What is the ultimate decision? How much will it cost? Yeah. So, and that is a very simple decision because it might just cost you 300 or 500 bucks. But imagine a company going out in the market and acquiring another company. So, you know, all the data which revolves around any decision of such taking place is done at the back end by these KPOs. Okay? Similarly, equity research. Which companies you need to invest in? Yeah, you could be. So the only difference is most of the retail banks, they are also advising you on which companies you need to invest in. Yeah, where you should be investing your funds, be it mutual funds or ELSS schemes. But the primary difference between investment banking and commercial banking is that investment banking are assisting clients or corporations or high net worth individuals. They are not assisting us. Okay, so most of the top tier investment banks that you would have heard of, bulge bracket banks, are clients of Kopalamba. Okay, so I am not supposed to disclose names as such, but you can just search for any top tier investment banks in the entire world and they are with us. Okay, and now with Kopal falling into the Moody's umbrella, we are a little more stronger even now. Okay, we rebranded ourselves as Kopal Amba because we acquired a firm called Amba, which was based out of Bangalore and it was into equity research hardcore. Kopal initially was focusing on investment banking a lot. Now with Moody's coming in, credit research has again a huge potential. You all understand what is credit research? Anyone can tell me? Anyone? What do you understand by the simple term credit? All of you have done accountancy, right? Yeah. So what is credit? Okay, so credit research would be when you're lending something, you would obviously, will you lend me 1 lakh rupees today? Without you knowing me, without you knowing anything about me? No, you would not. So similarly, Moody's is it's the top credit rating agency in the world. Yeah, so they do credit analysis, and that is what is now part of Kopalamba as a stream. Okay. Now I see I'm running you through this because I think we are already falling short of time. But to run you through the skill set that we would ideally be looking at is broadly divided into 3 areas: K, S, and A. Can you elaborate this for me? K, knowledge. S, A, what do you ability? Okay. Attitude. Yeah, obviously. So knowledge, skills, and attitude is what we are looking at. So knowledge, again, as Pallav has been highlighting it again and again, that you have to think smart. I'm not getting disturbed. Why are you guys getting disturbed? Okay, it's okay. Alright. So knowledge, whatever you've read, you should be thoroughly aware of it and how can it practically make sense. Okay, because you are not going to write a book when you come to a corporate. Okay, you're going to apply what you've learned. Skills, again, when it comes to skills, it's not just how you dress, how you present. Of course, that is one primary focus, because I see a lot of people, not being able, though they possess the necessary knowledge at that point of time and they're able to answer all the questions, but somehow they lack the skills that was then needed to be presented in front of the interviewer. Okay, when it comes to skills, it would mean how you dress, how you behave, how you present yourself, how you communicate, because that's very important. You might be very good with the subject, maybe a 9% CGPA scorer. I am not concerned about it. Okay, I'm only concerned about how you behave at that span of time when you are with me. Okay. So communication, and especially, guys, we are all working with the MS Office tools. Yeah, you come to a corporate, you will work around Excel, you will work around PowerPoint, you will work around Microsoft Word, and these are skills that no one can come and teach you. You will have to learn it by yourself. Okay, I didn't learn that in my MBA. I didn't do that, and I realized that when I entered the corporate world that this should have been done before. Okay, so please enhance your MS Office skills, because if you lack there, you might be just rejected outright. Okay, and lastly, by far the most important thing is the attitude. Okay, because it's rightly said, attitude takes you to altitude. Yeah, and if you possess the right attitude, no matter how weak you are, how low in the skill set area you are, I might still hire you because I know you are hardworking, you can cope, you can learn, and then you can grow. Yeah? Am I making sense to all of you? Or is it like just theory? So this is practical. I'm just telling you from what I practically experienced and where I lagged. I would not want you to lag there, and especially I would want to see a lot of you at my office in my training room, because I'm a trainer. I train new hires. Yeah? Coming to the growth in Kopal-Amba, I think you would have heard about it. Anyone who's heard about the growth stories of Kopal? No one? None of you? So we have a biannual appraisal system, which by far I think no other company has it. Biannual appraisal means hike in most of the appraisals. So it's not just an appraisal meeting where I'm just meeting you and telling you what you've done in the past 6 months. So it's a proper appraisal with hikes and bonuses. We start with the senior analyst level for MDS, okay, and then move on from analysts to associates, and there are obviously layers in between. Then AVPs, VPs, directors, associate directors, obviously. Yeah. But the time when I joined Kopal, the growth was enormous. Every 6 months we used to have a promotion. Every 6 months. So you will find people with just spending 9 years in Kopal, they have become VPs from joining as analysts. So you can imagine the growth. Of course, it is not as same as that one, because we've increased in size, we've increased in a number of ways. So obviously the competition has increased. So it's not that easy anymore. But certainly if you prove that you can, whatever work you are doing and you can excel in that, certainly there's no limit to it also. Okay? Any questions? Because I think I'm ready to take more questions rather than tell you what all we do, what all is there, because I know typically you'll be knowing what the industry does. People who are keen to join. Yeah, it's analyst. So it's not that when you think of analyst, it's not as you will be asked to take out printouts and collect papers. So it is like what a VP would, the analysis what a VP would do, you would also be doing it. It's just about the managerial role changes. When you climb up the ladder, you become, rather than a team player, you become a team manager. Yeah, so you're no more a team player, you manage a team under you. But certainly the work will be the same.
Is there any difference between your commerce background or science background?
See, there's no difference as far as you know the fundamentals.
Actually, some companies are.
No, so see, in Kopal-Amba particularly, the interview process goes like this. You appear for a written test, which is again breaking down into language test, reasoning, and mathematical and financial ability. Once you clear the test, you are through again move to the round of interviews, which could vary depending on how much keen the interviewers to know more from you, and it will again be around technical skills. So whatever you've read and whatever
eligibility criteria also, right? 60% throughout.
Yeah, the 60 above 60%. Yeah, graduation.
Plus 3 and IB.
Yeah.
Certifications and
Yeah, certifications I think Pallav had rightly highlighted, especially if you're going for the financial one. I think CFA is something that you should certainly be doing, and people who are interested in risk management, FRM, for sure. I will not be able to advise you on any more certifications, but CFA again will be very important. Anything else? Any apprehension that you have as to what work you would be doing in the research industry? So it's research, it's not primary.